They saw him as a man who builds towers, villas, entire neighborhoods. But no one suspected he could destroy with the same precision he used to create. Marcus Talbot, a symbol of success, head of a real estate empire, a man whose life seemed carved from marble, the perfect family, the perfect home, the perfect future. Until one sentence, overheard by chance in the kitchen, cracked that marble like a sledgehammer blow. Betrayal doesn't thunder, it whispers. And when he heard the name Ronan, the world was no longer the same. Marcus didn't cause a scene. He didn't shout. He assembled a team. He started a war, not with bullets or blood, but with cold calculation, legal traps, attacks on reputation, on finances, on the pressure points that make even the strongest illusions collapse. He didn't just take back control. He turned the ruins of a marriage into a weapon. And now there's only one question. How far are you willing to go when your goal isn't forgiveness, but annihilation? Because sometimes revenge isn't a blaze, it's architecture. Greetings, my dear friend. I am very happy that you are watching my video, and I will be even happier if you subscribe to my channel. This will make me even happier. Let's get started. For nearly 25 years, Marcus Talbot believed he'd built his life on solid ground. A self-made titan in real estate, his development sprawled across 3 states, each structure a monument to his tireless ambition. But it wasn't just buildings he erected. It was a lifestyle others envied. High in the hills above Boulder, Colorado, his grand Mediterranean-style villa stood as a testament to his success and the life he'd crafted with his wife, Lena. At 53, Marcus still carried the athletic frame of a man far younger. His silver-threaded hair and piercing steel-blue eyes gave him a magnetic presence, one that held sway in boardrooms and contract negotiations alike. He and Lena had met when he was 25, drawn together at a charity auction where she brazenly outbid him on a vintage motorcycle he'd planned to win. That fire had captivated him then. Now it felt like a ghost that wouldn't leave. Their daughter, Wren, had inherited more of Lena's spirited nature than his composed reserve. From an early age, Wren had gravitated toward her mother's warmth, often shying away from Marcus's more reserved, pragmatic parenting. Now, 20 and studying psychology at Berkeley, she championed beliefs Marcus struggled to reconcile with. Conversations about personal identity, emotional boundaries, and a kind of freedom that felt alien to him. The cracks in his marriage hadn't erupted. They crept in. Lena's so-called journey of rediscovery began in her late 40s. Weekend yoga retreats turned into extended absences. Her wardrobe transformed, youthful outfits that didn't reflect her age. Their conversations grew shallow. Where once she'd shared vivid stories, now she offered vague summaries. Marcus dismissed it all, writing it off as the typical signs of a midlife shift. His mind stayed focused on the Henderson Tower, a 60-story architectural feat destined to transform Denver's skyline and immortalize his legacy. But everything unraveled on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday evening when he came home early, only to hear a voice that froze him in his tracks. "Mom, you can't just keep going through the motions," Wren's voice floated from the kitchen. "Imagine being with the same person for over 20 years. Dad's safe, predictable. When's the last time he surprised you or gave you anything besides another dinner reservation or some business-themed gift? You owe it to yourself to experience more, to be with someone new." Standing in the hallway, briefcase in hand, Marcus felt the air leave his lungs as Lena's quiet confession shattered the illusion of his life. "I already have," she admitted, her voice laced with both guilt and exhilaration. "His name is Ronan. I met him at a gallery opening last month. He looks at the world differently than your father. When I'm with him, I feel alive again, like there's still something waiting for me." "That's what I've been trying to say," Wren responded eagerly. You've lived inside Dad's world so long, you forgot what your own feels like. Does Ronan make you happy? Lena let the truth fall from her lips in a single, devastating word. Yes. That simple admission hit Marcus like a wrecking ball. Happier than I've felt in years. Marcus didn't say a word. He simply turned and left, easing the front door closed behind him. He sat in his car for nearly an hour, paralyzed, while memories from 2 decades of marriage flooded his mind, twisting, crumbling, reshaping into something unrecognizable. Once clarity returned, he drove straight to his office and picked up the phone. He called Nathan Price, his closest friend since college, and his trusted legal counsel. "I need you," Marcus said, his voice low and flat. "Lena's having an affair. Ren knew and encouraged it. I want every legal angle covered. I want options. All of them. Tonight." Nathan's voice came sharp, almost in disbelief. "Marcus, are you absolutely sure?" "I heard it myself. I'm apparently just a weight she's carried for 20 years. A long silence followed before Nathan responded, this time with the calculated calm of someone preparing for war. "Come to my place. Right now. Don't go back to the house. Don't speak to either of them. We need to move carefully." By the time Marcus arrived at Nathan's stately Tudor home in Cherry Creek, the raw pain had cooled into something harder. In Nathan's dark wood study, Marcus declined the glass of bourbon offered to him. "I need to stay sharp," he said. "I've been blind for far too long." Nathan observed him carefully, his silver buzz cut giving him the look of a retired general. "The next 24 hours will determine everything. What do you want to do?" Marcus turned toward the tall windows, gazing out over the city skyline he helped shape. The lights flickered like promises in the distance. "I want what's mine," he finally said, "and I want them to feel the weight of what they threw away." By dawn, his phone was flooded with missed calls, 39 in total, and over a dozen text messages, all from Lena. The last voicemail was nearly a whisper, desperate and trembling. "Marcus, please call me. I don't know what you heard, but we need to talk. Please." He played the message again. Her panic barely registered. It stirred no pity. From the guest suite at Nathan's house, Marcus stood before the mirror. The man staring back at him looked different, eyes colder, jaw clenched tighter. Something inside had shifted. "You've got choices," Nathan said over breakfast, spreading a stack of documents across the table once the housekeeper cleared the dishes. "My team pulled an all-nighter." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Your divorce attorneys?" "And more," Nathan said with quiet emphasis. "This isn't just about ending a marriage. It's about protecting everything you've built." Inside the folders were detailed records, credit card statements from unfamiliar restaurants, hotel stays in Boulder that aligned perfectly with Lena's retreats, and hundreds of messages exchanged with someone named Ronan Drake. "How did you get this so fast?" Marcus asked, already suspecting the answer. Nathan's expression didn't waver. "Remember Vince Salazar? He handles security for most of your buildings." "He adapts easily," Marcus said under his breath, nodding with a deliberate calm. "And this is Ronan Drake," Nathan remarked as he slid a fresh folder across the polished table. "Multimedia artist, owns a modest gallery in Boulder, had a handful of exhibits in Denver over the past year, twice divorced, no children, lives in a converted warehouse loft. He doesn't depend on art sales to survive," Nathan continued. "His lifestyle's propped up by a sizable trust fund, legacy money from his maternal grandfather's shipping empire." The file contained a collection of surveillance photos, a lean figure with dark, shoulder-length hair and a meticulously unshaven face. Lena appeared in several shots beside him, grinning in a way Marcus hadn't seen in years. There was something lighter in her, almost unburdened. "And what about Ren?" Marcus asked. "How involved is she?" "To this point, more cheerleader than active player," Nathan answered. She's aware of the affair, but she's never actually met Ronan. What she has done is send Lena a steady stream of books and articles, stuff on self-liberation, defying traditional marriage roles, reclaiming autonomy. Marcus closed the file and stood, moving to the window in silence. "There are 3 outcomes I'm chasing, Nathan," he said softly. "First, I want to secure what I've built. Second, I want Lena to understand, truly understand, what she's giving up. And third," his voice dropped, "I want Ronan Drake to wish he'd never come across the name Talbot." "The first is legal containment," Nathan replied. "The other 2, that's going to take a more unconventional approach. Are you prepared for that?" Marcus turned, jaw clenched, eyes unwavering. "I've spent my life creating things," he said. "Now I'll learn how to dismantle them." By early afternoon, the operation was already underway. Marcus checked into the Four Seasons presidential suite under a corporate alias. Nathan's legal team drafted a preliminary divorce petition, under strict orders not to file unless explicitly told to. Vince Salazar, a veteran in covert surveillance, was assigned to track both Lena and Ronan's movements. At precisely 3:47 p.m., Marcus picked up Lena's call. "Where the hell are you?" she blurted, her voice laced with panic and anger. "You've had me frantic." "Really?" Marcus said, voice level and cold. "I thought you'd be relieved. More uninterrupted time for you and Ronan to wax poetic about painting and betrayal." The silence that followed spoke louder than any words. "Marcus, listen. Whatever you think, I know enough," he cut in. 23 years, Lena, and you and our daughter reduce it all to a prison sentence with the same dull man." "That's not fair," she shot back. "Wren's still a kid. She doesn't see things clearly." "She sees just fine," he said, biting. "She helped you rationalize the knife you stuck in my back, and you welcomed it. We need to sit down, face to face. Please, just come back." "That house isn't my home anymore," Marcus replied, voice like steel. "You made your choice, Lena. Now I'm making mine." He hung up and looked at Nathan, who had been listening quietly nearby. "She'll run straight to him. She'll want reassurance." Nathan gave a single nod. "Vince is tracking. We'll have visibility on every move." Marcus turned back to the Denver skyline, face hardening. "Good. We begin now." 7 days into his self-imposed exile, Marcus had turned a private office in one of his downtown properties into a command center. Walls were covered in timelines, real estate filings, surveillance images, and financial schematics. Vince's latest intel confirmed it. Ronan had moved into Marcus's estate 3 days earlier, at Lena's invitation. "She's uneasy," Nathan observed, studying a photo of Lena and Ronan walking into a law firm. "Look at her shoulders. She knows something's coming." Marcus's eyes locked on the firm's sign, Breckman and Associates. "Bold move, but reckless." "They'll try to move fast," he said, "counting on me being too broken to respond with strategy." Vince, compact and alert with the controlled energy of someone trained in military ops, tacked a new photo onto the corkboard. "Wren showed up yesterday," he reported. "She's back in her old bedroom." "How touching," Marcus said dryly. "One big happy betrayal." Sybil Reese, the final member of the core group, spoke at last. As the company's CFO, she knew every financial pressure point, like muscle memory. "The trust is locked," she confirmed. "They can't touch the business core." "And the prenup?" Marcus asked. "It protects all income and assets derived from the company," she replied. "But your personal property? That's where it gets tricky." "The houses, the collection, the vehicles," Marcus said, his voice low. "All considered marital assets," Sybil admitted. "And under Colorado statutes, those are subject to equitable division. But there's a loophole?" he asked. Her smile was tight, knowing. "Let's call it a creative use of what the law allows." For the next 72 hours, they refined every tactic, exploiting every legal gray area to the last letter. Marcus adhered to his usual business schedule without faltering, attending site briefings, fielding inquiries, and managing operations as if nothing in his world had shifted. The Henderson Tower project remained on course. To outsiders, nothing had changed. Yet those truly close to him could feel the quiet current of change beneath his controlled demeanor. On the 10th day, an unexpected call broke the surface. The caller, Hera Drake, Ronan's second ex-wife. "Mr. Talbot, we haven't met, but I believe we have something to discuss." They agreed on a discreet meeting at a tucked-away bistro in Cherry Creek. Hera arrived with an energy Marcus hadn't anticipated. Early 30s, striking green eyes and a neat auburn bob. She didn't waste time with small talk. "Ronan follows a script," she said matter-of-factly. "He gravitates toward driven women at transitional moments, makes them feel noticed, valued, deeply understood. He's frighteningly good at it." "What is it you want from me, Ms. Drake?" Marcus asked, cutting to the heart of it. "Justice," she answered, voice level, eyes unwavering. "When he left, he didn't just leave emotional wreckage. He stole what we built together, claimed projects as his own. Ronan's legacy isn't something he earned. It's patchworked from pieces he's taken from others." "Pursuing vengeance rarely comes without collateral," Marcus warned. Her lips curled into a small, bitter smile. "This isn't about money, Mr. Talbot. I need an ally, someone with leverage I don't have." That night, Marcus archived her materials under a secure digital folder marked only War Room. Hera's evidence was thorough. Detailed records of Ronan's financial missteps, inconsistencies in his tax history, and confirmation that several works in his so-called solo portfolio had actually stemmed from collaborative efforts with past lovers and partners. "There's meat on these bones," Nathan said as he skimmed through the contents. "It's a beginning," Marcus replied, "but we're still laying the foundation." Alone in his suite later that night, another call came in, this time from Wren. "Dad?" Her voice was tentative, fragile, like the sound of a long-lost memory. "I messed up. Badly." "You made more than one mistake," he replied flatly. "You don't understand," she pushed back. "Ronan isn't who Mom thinks he is. I've seen things, heard things. He's controlling her, twisting everything." "And you're just now catching on?" Marcus's voice was laced with exhausted disappointment. "You backed her when she set fire to everything we had," he added. "I thought she was unhappy," Wren said, defensive. "I thought you didn't care anymore. I didn't understand what you two really had." "Seems I didn't either," Marcus replied, his voice cooled by restraint. "What is it you want from me now?" "I need help," she said quietly. "She's cut me out, thinks I'm being jealous or manipulative. He's isolated her from everyone who cares. Even Aunt Patricia tried reaching her. Mom pushed her away too." That name gave Marcus pause. Patricia, Lena's older sister, had always been the moral compass, the one Lena trusted when things grew unclear. If even she had been shut out, the situation was worse than he'd thought. "And why should I help you?" he asked, his tone steady but low. "You turned your back on me when it mattered." "Because you're not like them," Wren replied. "You're better. Better than I ever gave you credit for. And better than who she's becoming under him." After the call ended, Marcus lay in silence, eyes fixed on the ceiling as his mind turned through plans, contingencies, and timing. By morning, the blueprint was set. A surgical, layered strategy with zero tolerance for missteps or regrets. "Are you sure about this?" Nathan asked when Marcus laid out the operation the next morning. "There's no walking away once we start." Marcus's expression turned to steel. "They dismantled my life without blinking. Now it's their turn to lose everything, one calculated step at a time. And I want them to watch it fall." 3 weeks after Lena's betrayal came to light, Marcus executed his first deliberate move. It was a quiet Sunday, chosen precisely because both Lena and Ronan would be at home, verified by surveillance. He arrived in his Bentley, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that spoke of elegance and intention. His posture was controlled, confident. Every movement was recorded by the estate's security cameras as he made his way to the front door. Lena appeared the moment the intercom alerted them, eyes wide. Ronan loomed behind her, feigning calm in designer leisure wear carefully styled to look effortless. "Marcus," Lena breathed as he stepped inside, scanning his face. "I've been worried sick." "Have you?" he replied smoothly, brushing past her into the foyer. His eyes moved through the space like a scanner, taking in every subtle shift. Ronan's boots by the door, a new abstract painting on the wall, furniture rearranged in the sitting room. Ronan approached, hand outstretched. "Mr. Talbot, I believe we should—" Marcus didn't so much as glance at him. His gaze stayed fixed on Lena. "I came to retrieve a few personal items," he said evenly, "and to talk logistics." Lena's face cycled through surprise, relief, suspicion, all in a blink. "Of course," she said softly. "Can I offer you some coffee?" "We can speak in the study. No need for the pleasantries," Marcus said, his voice devoid of warmth. "This isn't a social call." He didn't wait for a reply. Instead, he turned and ascended the stairs toward the master suite. The one Vince had confirmed now served as Ronan's quarters. Once inside, he headed to the closet, hand-picking suits, shirts, and accessories, and passed each item to Nathan, who waited with open garment bags. Behind a painting of Aspen and Winter, Marcus revealed a hidden safe. From it, he retrieved select documents along with his late father's prized collection of vintage watches. He was mid-task when Lena appeared in the doorway, her face tight with strain. Her voice quivered. "Marcus, please, can we talk like rational adults? I never meant to cause you pain." He turned slowly to face her. "Is that right? Telling our daughter I was some kind of burden didn't strike you as a little vicious?" Lena's complexion paled. "You weren't meant to hear that." "But I did," Marcus replied coolly. "And don't insult either of us by pretending it was misconstrued. You were restless, dissatisfied, chasing something new. Well, congratulations. You found it." He motioned toward the bedroom, where clear traces of Ronan's presence lingered. "Let's hope it lives up to your imagination." Without waiting for a reply, he brushed past her, descended the stairs, and found Ronan waiting in the foyer. Whatever laid-back charm Ronan usually wore was now replaced by a guarded posture, his tone cautious. "Listen, man, I get that this is hard, but being aggressive won't help anything." For the first time, Marcus locked eyes with him. "Mr. Drake, I hear you've made yourself at home here." Ronan blinked, caught off guard by Marcus's civility. "It's complicated. Lena and we have something genuine." "I've been told," Marcus said evenly. "Tell me, do these genuine connections typically blossom with married women? Or is Lena your first?" Ronan stiffened. "You have no idea what exists between us?" "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "But I do know about Hera and Jessica before her. You seem to have a particular rhythm." A flicker of unease passed through Ronan's expression, quick but unmistakable. Marcus handed the garment bags to his driver and turned to Lena. "My attorneys will be in touch," he said plainly. "In the meantime, enjoy the house. Consider it the opening act of your new independence." He had reached the front steps when Lena's voice called after him. "That's it? You're just walking away? After 23 years together?" Marcus paused, glancing over his shoulder. She now stood beside Ronan in the entryway, the two of them framed like a bitter portrait. "No, Lena," he said calmly. "I'm not walking away. I'm delivering exactly what you asked for, something different." By nightfall, the first phase of his exit was complete. Marcus's belongings had been relocated to a luxury penthouse he'd discreetly acquired months earlier through a shell company under the pretense of an investment acquisition. But more importantly, he had left behind uncertainty. Lena, disturbed by his measured detachment, was already unraveling. And Ronan was visibly shaken when Marcus hinted at his history. "She'll push for a quick settlement," Nathan predicted as they combed through security footage later that evening. "She saw how composed you were. No outburst, no theatrics. That threw her off." Marcus offered a single nod. "And Ronan," Vince added, pausing the video as Ronan paced through a phone call shortly after Marcus had left. "He made 3 calls right away. One to his gallery director, one to his attorney, and one to a number we're still tracing." "Good," Marcus said. "Let him sweat." The next morning, Marcus entered the Talbot Development Group headquarters for the first time since the scandal had surfaced. Internally, the company was only told that he and Lena were parting ways. No details beyond that. Taking his seat in the corner office, he reviewed the day's agenda and a thick stack of documents handed over by his assistant, Cynthia. "Welcome back, Mr. Talbot," she said gently, eyes laced with sympathy. "Thank you, Cynthia. Please let Sybil know I'd like to see her when she's available." When Sybil arrived, Marcus wasted no time. "We're moving up the Henderson Tower announcement, and let's take Lakewood public next week, not Q3. She raised an eyebrow. "That's aggressive. Lakewood's final filings aren't cleared yet." "They will be," Marcus said. "Also, I want to initiate the asset restructure we discussed last year, form the holding company for my private assets, and start dividing the commercial division into regional units." Realization dawned on her. "That's going to make outside valuation difficult, especially for anyone trying to get a clear picture of your finances." "Precisely," Marcus replied. "Just sound business decisions. The timing, pure coincidence." By week's end, Lena's attorneys reached out to Nathan with a settlement proposal. As anticipated, it aimed to expedite closure, offering a division of assets that, while not wholly slanted in Lena's favor, would still secure her a comfortable financial outcome and significant property rights. Cautious, Nathan thought. They're offering just under what a Colorado judge might award in a contested trial. They want to keep certain details buried. "Decline it," Marcus said flatly. "Tell them I won't even consider negotiating until a full audit of both personal and shared assets is finished. That won't be quick. Months at least," he added. Nathan allowed himself a faint grin. "That'll rattle them." But the next move didn't come from Lena. It arrived from someone no one had anticipated. Patricia Winters, Lena's elder sister, requested a discreet meeting with Marcus. They met at a quiet restaurant tucked far outside city limits. 5 years Lena's senior, Patricia had aged gracefully, her once golden hair now laced with silver strands. Though always cordial, she and Marcus had never been close. Once their meals were ordered, she wasted no time. "This is a catastrophe," she said plainly. "Lena's making the gravest mistake of her life." "She doesn't appear to see it that way," Marcus replied, tone steady. Patricia held his gaze, unblinking. "She's infatuated, and it's clouding everything. If it weren't so destructive, it'd be laughable. Ronan Drake is a parasite." "I tried to warn her," she continued. "She accused me of being bitter, stuck in the past." Marcus tilted his head. "Why bring this to me?" "Because regardless of everything, I know you loved her," Patricia said. "Not the version she performed for others, but the real Lena. That's more than I can say for that talentless fraud with a brush." She paused. "And because, like it or not everyone in the family stands behind her choices." Marcus regarded her closely. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A united front," she answered. "Lena's lost in a fantasy, and she's about to throw away everything meaningful. I want to help you bring her back to reality." That night, as Marcus drove home, he felt the architecture of his strategy snapping into place with a satisfying precision. Patricia's involvement introduced a new layer, one he hadn't had before. A conduit to the emotional undercurrents of Lena's world, insight into her inner circle, and leverage over how her decisions would be perceived by those closest to her. Meanwhile, his team kept reinforcing protective layers around his most critical assets. Vince's covert surveillance revealed Ronan spiraling, his anxiety manifesting in increasingly erratic ways. The most satisfying part? Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The pieces were finally aligned. Now came the unraveling. By week 6, the pressure Marcus had applied began bearing fruit. Lena's legal counsel, now clearly frustrated by the deadlock, fired off a barrage of messages demanding movement. Simultaneously, Ronan's gallery unexpectedly lost its lease, forcing a rushed relocation of his upcoming exhibition to a second-rate venue. Ren, too, had vacated the family estate. After a volatile argument with her mother, loud enough to echo across the manicured lawns of the neighborhood, she moved into a small apartment nearer to her internship. Marcus monitored every development from his private suite, now transformed into a fortified operations center. The data wall had become a sprawling network of red-threaded connections, mapping seemingly unrelated incidents that all fed into his broader plan. Ronan's unraveling, Vince reported, flipping through images of a fiery altercation between Ronan and his gallery manager outside the new location. The downgrade hit him hard. His investors are spooked. And the other matter? Marcus asked. Vince nodded slowly. Confirmed. 2 pieces slated for the exhibit are near identical to works Hera documented as co-creations. She's ready to go public with plagiarism accusations, pending your approval. Marcus examined the photos in silence. Not yet, he said finally. Timing is everything. Later that day, Nathan arrived with legal developments. Lena's side is panicking. They're threatening to file for emergency spousal support if we don't respond to the settlement by Friday. Let them, Marcus replied coolly. In fact, I'd prefer that. Once they file, everything enters the public record. Nathan's jaw tightened. That includes the corporate restructuring, the shell entities, asset transfers. All above board, Marcus reminded him. Standard corporate maneuvers, each one legally justified. He let the moment breathe. Still, the optics will write their own headlines. Prominent developer shields assets from unfaithful spouse and her artist companion. The court of public opinion can be brutal. Later that afternoon, Patricia reappeared, this time at Marcus's office. She brought news that proved unexpectedly useful. Lena's starting to have doubts, she said. Ronan's been working late at the studio again, comes home hours past midnight. When the gallery lost its lease, he blamed her, said the divorce chaos scared away his patrons. How unfortunate, Marcus murmured, voice unreadable. Patricia arched a brow. I assumed you had something to do with it. The leasing company that pulled out is owned by a firm linked to Urban Core, one of your longtime partners, correct? Marcus didn't answer. A small smile played at his lips. Real estate's a complex web, he said. You'd be surprised how many threads connect in ways no one notices, until they tug loose. Whatever method you're using, it's clearly getting results. Ronan's facade began to crack the moment real pressure hit. Lena had witnessed him lash out at a barista the previous day over a minor mistake with his drink. It was jarring. He had always presented himself as calm, compassionate, until now. Stress reveals the truth, Marcus had once told her. Some people crumble the second their polished mask is challenged. Patricia was now observing him with a different lens, her gaze holding a trace of newfound admiration. You're not at all what I pictured, Marcus. Lena described you as brilliant, but blunt to a fault. There's no simplicity in what I'm orchestrating, Marcus replied. That first successful project taught me everything. Stability is rooted in the base. Rush things and the whole thing collapses. But patience builds strength. The pace of his maneuvering shifted decisively when Sybil arrived, bearing news precisely aligned with the next step of his plan. "There's trouble with the Henderson Towers anchor tenant," she reported. "They're reevaluating. Word's spreading about your personal affairs posing a risk to the company's stability. A weaker developer might have unraveled. Losing the primary tenant on a skyscraper of that scale could tank the whole financing model." Marcus remained unshaken. He leaned in slightly, eyes narrowing with intent. "Who started this?" "We tracked the origin to last week's chamber event," Sybil explained. "Ronan was there. With Lena, apparently. He was overheard telling several key investors you might be financially unstable." Marcus's expression darkened briefly before giving way to a cool, calculated calm. "Perfect. Get in touch with Brighton Financial," he directed. "Tell them we're initiating discussions with alternative tenants. Give them 72 hours to recommit before we make a formal pivot." Sybil blinked. "Brighton's our most solid option. If they pull out, they won't," Marcus interjected smoothly. "Not once they realize they're being manipulated. And when they double down, we'll have irrefutable evidence that Ronan tried to sabotage a deal worth 9 figures. That evening, an unexpected knock echoed through Marcus's penthouse. When he opened the door, Wren stood there, visibly distressed, looking far younger than her 20 years. "I didn't know where else to go," she said in a quiet, vulnerable tone. "Mom won't listen to me," she added as she stepped inside. "When I asked Ronan why he was talking about you with potential investors, he threatened to kick me out." Marcus watched her carefully. "What exactly did you overhear?" "He told someone you're drowning in debt, that Henderson Tower's a ticking time bomb, that backing you is like placing a blind bet on a sinking ship." Her voice trembled, tears beginning to form. "Dad, I've made bad choices. I thought Mom just needed someone strong to support her. I never imagined she'd burn everything down for someone like him." Marcus motioned for her to sit, maintaining a guarded emotional distance even as he made space for her pain. "What made you start doubting him?" Wren lowered her eyes to her lap. "I saw his messages. There's another woman, Mira, and I found old letters from exes. Every single one said the same thing. He used them, stole their work, emptied their bank accounts, and vanished." "And you brought this to your mother?" Marcus asked. "She said I was lying just to hurt her," Wren replied, her voice breaking. "Accused me of being your spy. But I never was. We were never that close." Marcus felt the weight of that confession, an ache not for Lena but for the daughter caught in the crossfire of a war she didn't even realize she'd helped start. "You can stay here tonight," he said gently. "The guest room is ready for you." After she'd gone to bed, Marcus made a call. "Move everything up," he told Nathan. "Ronan interfered directly with the Henderson Tower talks. I want him served with a cease and desist by morning, and Hera should file the intellectual property claim before the gallery opens." "That's a serious escalation," Nathan responded. "Lena might see it as a strike against her, too." "That's the point," Marcus replied coldly. "She needs to understand every choice has consequences, hers included, especially the people she lets into her life." The next morning, the Boulder Daily Camera ran a prominent feature on artistic plagiarism, spotlighting Hera Drake's allegations against Ronan's upcoming exhibition. By midday, Ronan was officially served legal papers at the estate, while Lena was out shopping. By evening, Brighton Financial had not only recommitted to the Henderson Tower, but also issued a public statement expressing full confidence in Talbot Development Group's stability. The storm Marcus had been quietly crafting was no longer just on the horizon, it was here, building force from every angle. As he reviewed the day's events, he allowed himself a small, grim flicker of satisfaction. The takedown had officially begun. 8 weeks into the meticulous operation, Marcus faced the first major counterattack. Lena's lawyers filed an emergency motion, accusing him of intentionally stalling their divorce and launching a campaign of financial aggression against her and Ronan. More troubling, two of Marcus's former colleagues submitted sworn affidavits, claiming he had a documented history of leveraging his corporate empire to punish enemies, real or perceived. The accusations didn't take long to dominate headlines, landing squarely on the front page of the Denver Post's business section. Prominent developers' divorce turns ugly. Corporate retaliation alleged. Nathan dropped the newspaper onto the conference table during their morning briefing, his expression carved from stone. "This could derail everything," he said, voice clipped and grave. Overseeing the proceedings would be Judge Harmon, a jurist well known for her zero-tolerance policy on economic coercion. Marcus scanned the article carefully, his gaze tightening when he spotted the names Gregory Pierce and Thomas Weldon, names he hadn't heard in ages, one-time peers, one-time confidants. Pierce and Weldon, he murmured. Didn't expect to see them resurface. They didn't exactly leave on good terms, Vince reminded him. They've been waiting for a crack to exploit. This stinks of Ronan's fingerprints. He pointed at the printout. He's been meeting with Lena's counsel 3 times in 2 weeks. Word is he's pushing them to get aggressive. Marcus placed the paper down with measured composure. They're trying to rewrite the narrative. Cast me as some cold-blooded executive using corporate muscle to punish a woman who fell for someone else. On the other side of the room, Sybil looked up from the spreadsheets she was reviewing. That angle might actually gain sympathy. It's emotionally charged. And the business community's already jittery about what your divorce could mean for the Henderson Tower, she added. If they start believing your personal life is steering your professional choices. Then we change the tempo, Marcus interrupted smoothly. It's time for phase 2. The pivot began with a carefully orchestrated piece in Business Colorado, arranged through a veteran journalist Marcus had quietly helped years before. The article painted a picture of a forward-thinking developer, unwavering in his dedication to innovation, even in the face of personal upheaval. The feature emphasized the groundbreaking green design of the Henderson Tower and its impact on the local economy, peppered with commendations from civic leaders praising Marcus's commitment to sustainable growth. Just as importantly, it included a carefully worded, composed statement about his split from Lena. After 23 years together, Lena and I have come to a natural parting of ways. While the process is undoubtedly difficult, I hold deep respect for her and am committed to resolving matters with dignity and fairness. The image that ran beside the article captured Marcus standing at the Henderson site, hard hat in hand, gaze lifted toward the skyline, calm, determined, not an ounce of bitterness. "This is perfect," Nathan said after reading it through. Measured, compassionate, forward-focused, completely undercuts their version of events. The next move came as a shock to Lena's attorneys. Acting on Marcus's orders, Nathan extended a settlement offer that was surprisingly generous on the surface. Included in the offer were their estate, a large cash payment, and ongoing revenue from selected real estate holdings. "They're going to assume it's bait," Nathan cautioned. "Something this conciliatory will raise eyebrows." "They're supposed to," Marcus replied calmly. "It puts us on record as fair and reasonable." He leaned back in his chair. "But more importantly, it's going to strain her relationship with Ronan." Just as Marcus had calculated, the proposal drove a sharp wedge between them. Patricia's surveillance updates confirmed Lena's interest in the deal, while Ronan, interpreting the move as strategic weakness, urged her to reject it and hold out for more. The disagreement erupted into a heated confrontation, all of it recorded by the home's internal security system, still quietly under Marcus's command. Ronan dropped the mask. He lashed out, accusing Lena of playing into Marcus's manipulation, hinting she still harbored feelings for her ex-husband. His tone turned sharp, his remarks dripping with disdain and blame. He laid the collapse of his public image and career squarely at her feet. Marcus watched the footage without a word, then turned to Vince with quiet resolve. Send it to her. Just that segment. No commentary. Let it speak on its own. Within hours, Patricia phoned in. Everything's blowing up, she reported, barely hiding the satisfaction in her tone. She saw the video and snapped, confronted Ronan, and when he tried to spin it, she told him to leave. He's back at his studio. She doesn't want him near the house. A faint smile flickered across Marcus's face. Tragic. That was you, Patricia said plainly. I showed her the truth, he replied. What she does with it is her decision. The final phase of the maneuver focused squarely on Ronan. Kira's intellectual property challenge had already begun to corrode his standing in the art scene, with reputable critics voicing suspicions about the legitimacy of his work. Now, Marcus pulled the last lever he had quietly set in place. Months earlier, he had strategically acquired control of the mortgage tied to Ronan's studio, disguised through layered investment portfolios. On his instruction, the property managers conducted a standard inspection that just happened to uncover a slew of costly code violations. Simultaneously, a discreet tip led to a state audit of Ronan's gallery. The Colorado Department of Revenue began combing through his tax records, flagging lavish personal trips and indulgent expenses marked as business-related deductions. The pressure came fast and hard. With his reputation unraveling, his relationship in ruins, and his studio facing financial risk, Ronan finally buckled, just as Marcus had intended. The gallery just canceled the next exhibit, Vince reported, and we've confirmed he booked a one-way flight to Santa Fe. Looks like he's going to stay with his sister. He's bolting, Nathan observed, eyes fixed on the surveillance feed. As predicted, Marcus replied, his voice like stone. Men like Ronan don't confront consequences. They run, chasing a fresh start somewhere else. The final confirmation had come through Ren, who had always kept emotional distance from her father, preferring the solitude of her own apartment. Mom called me in tears, she said quietly. Ronan left her a note, said he needs space to focus on his art and to fight back against what he's calling a slander campaign. He accused her of not standing up for him, said she let you corner him. Marcus listened, absorbing the report with quiet composure. And how is she dealing with it? She's a mess, furious, disoriented. Ren hesitated before continuing. She asked about you. She did? His tone didn't betray any emotion. What did she want to know? She wondered if you might speak to her. Another pause. She wanted to know if there was still a chance. And your answer? I said I didn't know. Ren studied him closely. But I also told her, you're not the same. You've changed. Marcus drew a long breath, thoughtful. Maybe I'm not changing. Maybe I'm finally becoming who I always was, just no longer filtered through anyone else's expectations. The following day, Marcus issued new instructions to Nathan. Revoke the settlement proposal. The landscape had shifted dramatically. As expected, Lena's attorney responded quickly, alternating between polite pressure and emotional appeal. My client is willing to revisit the previous terms, the lawyer offered. Surely there's still room to compromise. That offer's expired, Marcus's team replied. Too much has happened. We're beginning anew. With Ronan gone and the narrative fully under his control, Marcus moved into the final phase of his strategy. The ground had been scorched, the scaffolding torn down. All that remained was to ensure there was nothing left to salvage. 10 weeks after discovering Lena's betrayal, Marcus agreed to meet her face to face. The setting was an exclusive dining suite at the Brown Palace Hotel. He arrived on the dot. She was already seated, nervous but poised, wearing a navy dress he recognized from their last anniversary dinner. I didn't know if you'd actually come, she said, her voice uncertain as he took his seat. He regarded her with cool detachment. She looked different, older somehow. The self-assured glow she once radiated had dimmed to a fragile kind of dignity. "Your lawyer said you wanted a private conversation before we resumed talks," Marcus said, his tone impersonal. "I figured I'd listen." She winced at his emotional distance. "Can we just speak without the legal jargon? After 23 years, don't we deserve at least one real conversation?" "I thought we had plenty of those," he answered. "Turns out I misread their meaning." "I made a terrible choice," she admitted, voice hushed. "Ronan's attention. It felt exhilarating. His life seemed spontaneous, free, so different from ours. I got caught up in the fantasy." "Did it give you what you were looking for?" Marcus asked, not unkindly but with clinical interest. She dropped her gaze to the untouched wine glass. "You already know it didn't. You made sure of that." "I didn't destroy it," he said. "I just pulled back the curtain. Ronan Drake follows a pattern. He targets affluent women, makes them feel seen, valued, then takes what he wants and disappears. The only variable is how long it takes. You had him tailed." It wasn't a question. "Of course I did," Marcus answered without a trace of guilt. "Just as I would any business partner or major acquisition. It's due diligence, standard procedure." Lena's eyes narrowed. "Was that how you viewed our marriage? A business deal?" "You gave up the right to question my perspective the moment you called me dead weight," he said, steady and cold. "But for what it's worth, no. I saw us as a partnership. That's why your betrayal demanded a response this decisive." Her posture slumped, the last flicker of anger in her eyes fading. "So what now? You want to wipe me out? Make me wish I'd never met him? If that was the plan, congratulations. Mission accomplished." Marcus studied her in silence. "What I want isn't relevant anymore." "This isn't about reconciliation," he continued. "We're here to finalize what's left." Lena's voice softened. "But what if I do want reconciliation? What if I told you that leaving you was the worst mistake of my life, and I want to rebuild?" For the first time, something subtle moved in Marcus's features. It wasn't rage, it wasn't hurt. It was gentler, quieter, something closer to mourning. "What we had is gone," he said quietly. "And it didn't vanish overnight. It decayed, slowly, with every decision you made, every excuse you gave. The way you spoke about me to our daughter, like I was some obligation you had to endure. It wasn't one betrayal. It was death by 1,000 cuts." Lena's gaze shimmered, on the verge of tears. "So, there's no room left for forgiveness?" Marcus's tone was steady, but his words were resolute. "There's nothing left to forgive," he said. "The man who once revolved his life around you, the one who measured success by your happiness, doesn't exist anymore. These past 10 weeks changed me. I see the truth now, unfiltered." A heavy silence settled between them, thick with the remnants of everything they'd lost. After a long pause, Marcus reached into his blazer and retrieved a sleek folder. "These are the updated conditions," he said, placing it in front of her. "They're more reserved than what I offered before, but still equitable. The estate is far too expansive for one person to maintain," he added. "I've allocated funds for a more manageable property. You'll receive consistent income, partial returns from selected investments, and formal recognition for the role you played in our shared history." Lena stared at the folder but didn't touch it. Her voice was thin and sharp. "So this is what kindness looks like now, from the reinvented Marcus Talbot?" His response came without pause. "This isn't kindness," he said bluntly. "It's calculated. There's no benefit in continuing to dismantle your life. You've already lost your husband. The affair you sacrificed everything for imploded. And your daughter sees you through the lens of disappointment. Anything more would be overkill." "And Ren?" she asked quietly. "Are you trying to turn her against me for good?" Marcus gave a slow shake of his head. "Ren will make up her own mind. She's older now, even if her judgment where you were concerned left much to be desired. My relationship with her stands apart from what's between us." He rose, smoothing his jacket with the same measured precision that had always defined him. "Have your attorney review the proposal. You'll find it preferable to the drawn-out fight the alternative entails." As he turned to leave, Lena's voice cracked behind him. "Did it mean anything? The 23 years we spent together?" He stopped at the doorway, considering her words. "It meant something to me," he said softly. "Every promise, every shared hope, I lived them fully." "But that's not the question that matters, Lena. What you really need to ask is what it meant to you." He left her behind, seated in silence, the folder unopened on the table, surrounded by the invisible remains of a life she chose to walk away from. The divorce concluded more swiftly than anyone had anticipated once Lena accepted the terms. Industry watchers noted the lack of public scandal with quiet approval. Shares in Talbot Development Group ticked up by 3 points the day the settlement was filed. Marcus's reputation remained pristine. The unshakable CEO focused solely on his empire, unswayed by private turmoil. Work on Henderson Tower advanced without disruption, its striking silhouette already altering the Denver skyline. Simultaneously, the Lakewood Initiative had officially broken ground, lauded for its commitment to sustainability and accessible housing. For those observing from a distance, Marcus seemed unchanged, perhaps even matured. A man who had faced personal adversity with stoicism and grace. But those closest to him, Nathan, Sybil, and Vince, knew better. The man who once crafted sanctuaries with Lena in mind now operated with surgical precision, governed by logic, untouched by sentiment. Then, 6 weeks after the final decree, something unexpected happened. Wren appeared at his office unannounced, her expression lined with worry. "Something's wrong with Mom," she burst out. "She's unraveling. Spending like crazy, dating terrible men, drinking more than she should. Aunt Patricia tried intervening, but Mom shut her out." Marcus listened carefully, his expression unreadable. "Your mother is an adult. She has both the freedom and the means to live as she chooses, even if those choices are destructive." "That's your stance?" Wren fired back. "You're just going to let her implode?" "I didn't break what wasn't already fractured," he replied calmly. "She ended our marriage. Ronan Drake made his decisions, and you stood by and defended it all. I made sure everyone paid a price." Wren flinched, caught off guard by the brutal accuracy of his words. "You made the settlement look generous, but it's calculated," she said, voice strained. "The monthly installments keep her dependent. The investments are tied to assets you oversee. Even her new house is in one of your developments. She's surrounded by your allies. It's gilded, but it's a cage." Marcus raised an eyebrow almost approvingly. "That's a sharp observation," he said. "If you'd applied that kind of insight before backing her betrayal, you might have spared her the consequences." Wren's confidence wavered. "I know I was wrong, completely, irrevocably wrong. I've told you that. I've told her that. But this isn't about me anymore. This is about what you're still doing to her." Marcus met her stare without blinking. "And what exactly would you have me do? Pretend none of it happened? Offer grace to the person who dismantled everything we built? Save her from the fallout of her own choices?" "I'm asking you to step back from her life completely," Wren said, her voice unwavering. "No more following her movements. No more using your influence to steer public opinion or manipulate her social standing. No more back-channel interference. Let her go, for real this time." Marcus studied his daughter carefully. The resemblance to Lena at that age struck him again. The same determined set of the jaw, the same fierce clarity in her stare when she was drawing a line. "Fine," he said at last, after a pause thick with calculation. "I'll instruct Vince to terminate all surveillance. The lines of information from our shared contacts will be severed. Lena can live her life without my oversight." Wren's eyes widened slightly, surprised by his swift compliance. Just like that? Just like that, Marcus echoed calmly. I've said what needed saying. There's no strategic value in keeping tabs any longer. Her choices are no longer my concern. Later that evening, staying true to his statement, Marcus gave Vince the directive to stand down. We're finished monitoring her. No more reports, he said with finality. Vince nodded, tapping notes into his ever-present tablet. And Ronan Drake? He's made contact twice in the past month. Marcus considered that. Discontinue the active watch, but leave the alerts in place. If he shows up in Colorado or tries to contact her directly, I want to be informed. He's the type to wait for the dust to settle before making his move. And when he resurfaces? A flicker of something cold, almost amused, played at the corners of Marcus's mouth. Then we remind him why that's a mistake. 2 days passed. Then came the unexpected call from Patricia. Her voice was tense, rushed. There's been a crash. Lena lost control driving back from Aspen last night. The car went off the road near Georgetown. They suspect she may have been drinking. Marcus's expression didn't change. How serious is it? She has a concussion, some cracked ribs, and several cuts. She's stable, but clearly shaken. The authorities haven't decided whether to pursue charges. I see. So what are you asking me for, Patricia? A beat of silence. She's asking to see you. I told her it wasn't appropriate, but she's insistent. Did she say why? She said there are things she needs to say, things she can't wait any longer to tell you. Marcus didn't respond right away. Text me the hospital details. I'll consider it. He ended the call, letting the silence in his penthouse stretch out. He stared over the skyline, the city he helped mold from the ground up, quiet, contemplative, the weight of Lena's request settling across his chest. Eventually, he rose. When he arrived at the hospital, the room was dim. Lena lay against a pile of pillows, her skin pale, her face a map of bruises and shallow cuts. A stark bandage wrapped her head, and her presence felt smaller than usual, diminished not only by the crash but by the emotional wreckage of the past year. You came, she said, her voice rough. Patricia said it couldn't wait, he replied, standing just inside the doorway. Lena shifted, wincing. The doctors say I'm lucky. The car hit trees before it could roll all the way down the slope. A few more feet, she murmured. Marcus stayed quiet, waiting. I wasn't drinking, she said firmly. They tested me. A deer ran out. I swerved. That's all it was, a freak accident. I'm glad your injuries weren't worse, he said, his voice measured and distant. She frowned, frustration edging through the fog of medication. That's it? A neutral comment? What response are you expecting? He asked. That I pretend to care? Sit here and act like nothing's changed? We aren't husband and wife anymore, Lena. We don't owe each other solace. Tears welled in her eyes. Is that really who you've become? A man who can stand in front of his ex-wife's hospital bed and feel absolutely nothing? Marcus's gaze didn't waver. What I feel is immaterial. You forfeited the right to those feelings the moment you walked away from everything. I know, she whispered. That truth hit me as the car slid off the road. I traded the only thing in my life that was genuine for something brittle, something that shattered the second it was tested. I wrecked something precious because I didn't realize its worth until it was gone. Marcus moved a step closer, his face unreadable, detached. So that's what you needed to tell me? That now, when it's too late, you finally understand what you destroyed? No, she said quietly, meeting his gaze. I needed you to know I understand you. She paused to gather herself. Every move you made, unraveling Ronan's life, exposing who he really was under pressure. The settlement, generous enough to keep me comfortable but carefully calculated to exclude me from everything we built together. It was all intentional. You're overestimating me, he said dryly. She shook her head gently. No, my mistake was never seeing you clearly. I saw the builder, the provider, the man who kept everything operational. But I overlooked the architect, the one who could craft entire systems and reshape reality itself with sheer discipline and vision. A flicker of something unfamiliar, perhaps even pride, passed through Marcus as he watched the realization dawn on her face. She finally understood the scale of what he had accomplished. "I see it now," Lena said, her voice steady and subdued. "With full clarity, and with that, I can let go. No more clinging to reconciliation, no more exhausting myself with all the ways things might have been different. You crafted the reckoning perfectly, Marcus. You made sure I'd understand what I threw away, and made certain that knowledge would stay with me, always." He absorbed her words in silence before finally responding. "An architect doesn't create by accident," he said. "Every line, every detail is deliberate. If you've truly grasped the design, then the plan fulfilled its purpose." Turning toward the exit, he lingered just a moment. "Goodbye, Lena." She barely whispered, "Goodbye, Marcus," as the soft click of the door marked his departure. Exactly 1 year to the day after overhearing the exchange that shattered the remnants of his marriage, Marcus stood atop the observation deck of Henderson Tower, gazing across the sweeping city skyline. The 60-story structure was already being hailed as a landmark in eco-conscious architecture, a seamless blend of innovation and environmental foresight. "A hell of a view," said Nathan as he stepped beside Marcus, resting his hands on the glass balustrade. "Every obstacle we hit getting here, it was worth it." Marcus gave a small nod, eyes scanning the familiar patchwork of streets and neighborhoods he'd helped shape over decades. "The mayor reached out this morning," Nathan continued. "They want to fast-track the riverfront development. Looks like our goodwill campaign did the trick. Your strategy for rehabbing our image was brilliant. Not many walk through a scandal and come out looking more credible than before." Marcus hadn't just weathered the storm of divorce. He had emerged stronger. The media had spun his story as one of unwavering dedication to civic progress, portraying him as a visionary who stayed committed to the public good amid personal upheaval. With careful management of the narrative, what could have ended his career became a tale of resolve and forward motion. "Have you looked at the gala invite list yet?" Nathan asked, changing gears. "Patricia suggested maybe we extend one to Lena. Said it might be a graceful gesture." "I told her I'd ask your thoughts first." Marcus was thoughtful. "No. Her presence would shift the attention to the past. The focus should stay where it belongs, on the work." Nathan studied him quietly. "Word is, she's doing well now. Teaching art at the college, helping out in the community. Seems to have found her footing." Marcus's tone remained even. "That's good. And Ronan Drake? He packed up, moved to Santa Fe. Calls himself a spiritual artist these days. Says he's inspired by native traditions. Locals aren't buying it, but the tourists eat it up." A small, wry smile flickered on Marcus's face. "Some people build on unstable ground. Others understand the value of a strong foundation. Only one of those survives the elements." That night, Marcus hosted an intimate celebration in the penthouse atop Henderson Tower. The guest list was curated with care, loyal partners, political allies, and the inner circle who had stood with him through both the project's complexity and the turbulence of his private life. Ren arrived last, poised and elegant, so much like Lena in their early years that Marcus momentarily lost his breath. Their once strained father-daughter relationship had grown into something deeper, more nuanced. She'd recently completed her psychology degree and was working with vulnerable youth, with graduate studies on the horizon. "Dad," she said warmly, embracing him briefly, "it's absolutely breathtaking. You outdid yourself." "I'm really glad you came," he said, genuine emotion in his voice. "I wasn't sure you would." Ren gave a measured look. "I nearly didn't." But I'm trying to live by what I teach my kids, about moving forward, forgiving, releasing the past. You're wise beyond your years, Marcus noted. Sometimes wisdom is just survival, dressed up a bit, she replied, then added quietly, I saw Mom yesterday. She said today marks exactly 1 year. Marcus nodded slightly, his expression unreadable. 12 months. In any build, that's when you see whether the foundation holds. Wren smirked. Still speaking in construction metaphors, some habits never die. On the contrary, he replied gently, everything changes. The question is, do we guide it, or do we let it shape us without consent? As the evening went on, Marcus took on the role of quiet observer, watching the mingling guests with a distant calm. Nathan was energetically discussing the riverfront project with Sybil. Vince, usually quiet, was enthusiastically explaining the tower's security features to a city official. Across the room, Patricia and her husband David served as a calm, steady presence, radiating warmth and quiet loyalty. When dessert plates were cleared, Nathan raised his glass with a subtle tap, commanding the room's attention. I'd like to offer a toast, he said, to Marcus Talbot, not just a builder of towers, but a builder of legacies. Henderson Tower will stand long after we're gone, as a symbol of his vision, tenacity, and purpose. The room responded with the clink of glasses and murmured agreement. And to new beginnings, Nathan added, his eyes finding Marcus's. May the next thing we create rise from even stronger ground. Much later, after the final guest had gone, Marcus stepped out onto the balcony, the city stretching out below in soft electric light. Wren joined him in the quiet, standing beside him, as the night whispered around them. The city stretched out below them, a glittering sprawl of glass and steel that shimmered like a man-made galaxy, a reflection of the stars above, forged through relentless ambition. Do you ever reflect? Wren asked, her voice almost a whisper. Not just on how things ended with Mom, but on the person you had to become to survive it all. Marcus paused, the silence between them heavy with memory. I regret that it had to happen, he said finally. That becoming who I needed to be came at such a price. But the outcome itself? That I don't regret. To build something that endures, he went on, you sometimes have to dismantle what's already fractured. And now? Wren asked, not letting him drift away. Now that it's over. The revenge, the battles, the reckoning. What are you working toward now, Dad? His eyes scanned the maze of streets and towers glowing beneath them, a lattice of past decisions and hard-won truths. Something different, he said. Not a life shaped by duty or resentment, he clarified, but one anchored in authenticity, in who people really are beneath the surface. He hesitated, then added, Your mother taught me that lesson. Brutally, yes, but it's stuck. When the pressure mounts, the masks fall, and it's the architect's job to build with what's real. Wren looked at him closely, taking in the quiet authority etched into his expression, the clarity carved by time and trial. You're not who you were, she said. None of us are. No, Marcus agreed. You've evolved. So have I. And your mother, too. Everything we thought would last, collapsed, and from the rubble we rebuilt, into versions of ourselves we were always meant to become. That's what real destruction does, he murmured. It forces reinvention. Sometimes that's a gift, sometimes it's not. After the last guest had left and the echoes of celebration faded into stillness, Marcus remained alone in the penthouse of his greatest creation. There was no triumph, no lingering grief, only a sharp, resolute calm. He hadn't merely survived betrayal, he had transformed it into the cornerstone of something entirely his own. A life not crafted from affection or loyalty, but from calculation, clarity, and strength. He saw it clearly now. The revenge had never truly been about Lena or Ronan. It had always been about evolving, about becoming the kind of man who could analyze the architecture of every connection, identify its fault lines, and, if necessary, tear it down to rebuild something stronger. Marcus Talbot, architect not only of buildings but of destinies, turned his back on the skyline he had helped shape. Whatever came next, he would face it with certainty, because from this moment forward, nothing he constructed would ever fall unless he willed it to. Our story comes to an end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this story, please check out other videos on this channel. See you soon, my dear friend.